Greetings and welcome to the next review in our mid-2018 video review series. Today I'm going to review the Ramon Allones Finos Asia Pacifico Regional Edition from 2009. There it is. And I must admit to you, even before I light this cigar up, I have been fretting a little bit about this cigar, and that's because of my lofty expectations. And I think as cigar smokers, when we have high expectations of a cigar, we can be prone to having big disappointment. And I guess if you're familiar with the history of this cigar, basically you'd know exactly what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and light it up and talk a little bit more about that history. So just while I'm lighting it up, as I said at the beginning of the review, the cigar came out in 2009. If you picked up a box, you would have known that they were nigh on impossible to smoke back then. Rob and Smithy did a review on FOH, and they both had to admit that they really couldn't get discernible flavours out of it, and the nicotine, the strength of the cigar was so strong. Fast forward about 3 years later, and Smithy had another go at another review with Warren, Brendan, and Caddick, and they were able to get other flavours, not settled flavours, but flavours like stewed fruit, cherries, cream, toast. But I guess the consensus in that review was that it was still developing. Fast forward to 2014, and Rob had put up a few forum threads. If you search for them on FOH, you'll find them quite easily, as to how the cigar was smoking, because the first 3 years, this cigar, it wasn't really approachable in any way. It's just too strong smoke. Had plenty of legs, as we say, in it. So fast forward to 2014, 2015 on FOH, a number of people have said that it had settled down closer to medium, and you were getting some more flavours out of them. As for myself, the last two RACFs, as we come to describe them on the forum, that I smoked, I think the last two that I smoked were March 2016 and November 2017, and the flavours that I discerned out of them at that time were chocolate, cocoa, leather, aged tobacco, dark cherries or morello cherries, almond nut, and stewed fruit, which is a classic Ramon Allones flavour. And I noted that the strength at the time was around a medium. Now, just drawing down on the first few puffs on the cigar at the moment, and it's now approaching 9 years old, 2 months short of 9 years old, and it's really nice medium mild. It has a little bit of spice. I even detected a little bit of aged creaminess that you get with aged cigars. Leather, chocolate, toast, it's all there. The spice is definitely there in the well, just the beginning of the first third. What I might do is I might retrohale, see how it goes through the nose. Definitely 100% spice through the nose. Let's see if that settles a little bit into the middle third. I'll smoke through this a bit more and I'll come back when we reach the middle third. So I'm approaching the end of the first third now, and the ash on that is wondrous. Extraction is faultless, fantastic. I wanted to discuss the shape of the cigar. Have a look at it. If you're familiar with the cigar, you know that it's tapered around the head and around the foot, and that type of cigar is called a figurado. So basically, if you want to know cigar shapes at a very, very basic level, they're split into parejos, P-A-R-E-J-O, I hope that's how you say it, I think that is, and figurados. And figurados are basically, parejos are cigars that are basically straight-shaped, and figurados are cigars that are basically not straight-shaped, like Pyramides or this one, which is a Perfecto, or you get Celebres, which are those snake-like cigars, 3-in-1 tied together like the Partagas Celebres. Or you get diademas, which are very big, gigantic cigars that are bulge in the middle and tape at both ends. Basically, what I wanted to tell you, if you've been familiar with this cigar, in the past, if you're not familiar, it's handy to know, but in the past, people have said when smoking a cigar like this that the flavours only open up when the end of the taper finishes in the first third, which is an interesting thing to note. The actual ring size of this cigar, of these type of cigars, are noted from where it's at its widest in the middle. And this cigar is a 46 ring gauge cigar by 137 millimeters long. Its factory name is Britannicus. Basically, the only other two cigars that were in regular production that were this size was the Hoya de Monterrey Obsequidos, I think that's how you say it, delivered in the 70s, and the Romeo y Julieta Salicios Finos, which actually Rob mentioned in the first review that they were not too bad in the 90s, but he'd labelled them dog rockets by the time they were deleted in 2002. That actually still going on. I'm just going to put it down and discuss a bit more about this Perfecto cigar, shape and why it's special. Simon Chase wrote an article for Cigar Journal. He went to 2016 and he mentioned the history of, he called them double figurados. Basically, at one point, figurado cigars were the shape of Cuban cigars. And we're talking the late 1800s, late 19th century. He notes in the article that around the 1930s, Hunters and Francow in the United Kingdom, according to their spreadsheets, they noted that figurados were no longer the biggest selling cigar. And it's pretty reasonable to surmise that if that was the case for Hunters and Francow, it would have been the case worldwide around the 1930s. Parejo cigars, straight-shaped cigars, came more into the fore. He said that in that same article that by the 1990s there were only three of these type of cigars left: the Romeo Julieta Salicios Finos, the Fonseca Invictus, which, if you're familiar with it, looks like to me like a crayon, something you could draw with. And the final one was the Partagas Presidente. So they were basically they weren't around, and what he was basically saying that was in that article was that in the 90s, under the direction of Fidel Castro, Francisco Linares, who was head of Habanos SA at the time, was instructed to come up with some new brands. And some of the new brands that came out at the time were Vegas Urbana Trinidad, which was around for diplomats but came out to the public in 97, 98. I think Vigueros, came out at that time. I think St. Cristobal and Coaba in 1996. And he mentions a specific family, the Izquierdo family, and one of those rollers, Carlos Izquierdos, I think his name was. He basically he was working in the Romeo and Julieta factory, and one of his favourite cigars to roll was the Julieta Romeo. And for years, it says in the article that he lamented this Perfecto being deleted, and he was trying to tell people in upper management and Cuba Tobacco at the time, as the company was called, to bring these cigars back. Now, when Coaba came out, it was marketed as a premium cigar, which I can spend another review discussing why that is. But I'm not going to do that now. But Coaba at the time that it came out, was thought of as a premium cigar, marketed as a premium cigar, and all of the cigars were figurado shapes or perfecto shapes. And Izquierdos, Carlos Izquierdo, I think that's how you say his name. He was responsible for training young rollers to roll these cigars, because these cigars are harder to roll than straight Pareos. I can't believe that hasn't ashed. Look at that, how gorgeous that is. And that is settling beautifully into a wondrous cigar, starting to meet my expectations, my lofty expectations. Died off a little bit through the nose, but still strong, but not as spicy. There we go. We've just ashed, thankfully, into the ashtray. We're into the middle third now. Still getting that chocolate leather. Fruit and cherries, predominant flavours. Lovely medium mild. Great smoke off each draw. I'm really happy with this. I'm going to come back and also smoke it down and see how it turns out towards the end of the back half. Approaching the final third now, and it's still burning beautifully. The rings per puff is quite easy to see there. As I was saying before, I believe this cigar shape is a prestige cigar for Habanos SA, and that's because of the difficulty in rolling it. And I do believe that they do get the more qualified torcedores, the rollers, to do these cigars. And kudos to whoever rolled this box, because they've rolled it really, really well. One of the other things I wanted to say was I'm very glad that Habanos SA bring these Britannicas and Britannica Extras, which is close to this size. It's a 48 ring gauge by 137 millimeter cigar, perfecto shape. They bring them out in regional editions, and the regional editions that have come out in this shape have been the Bolivar Britannicus, UK cigar, and also that was 2011. In 2017, there was also another UK release, La Gloria Cubana Britannicus Extra, but they're both 48 ring gauge by 137 millimeters long. Although one's called a Britannicus, which is the factory name of the 46 ring gauge one, but anyway, they had to give it a name, so they gave it that, I suppose. the Ramon Allones Perfectos, the Swiss 2014 release, and the Portuguese Bolivar, I think that was only just last year, 2017, Luciatis. That was also 48 ring gauge by 137. And of course, in the Asia Pacific region, we've got this Ramon Allones Silesios Finos in 2009, and in 2016, if you're not familiar with this release, the Rafael Gonzalez 88 came out in 2016. Now, in regards to Asia Pacific regional editions, if you're not aware, Asia Pacific releases tend to have a long, a long shelf life, for want of a better word. It takes a long time for them to really develop in their flavours, around the 5-year mark or so. It's certainly true of this Ramon Allones Silesios Finos. It wasn't until 2014, 2015 on our forum that people started to remark that it was approachable, the flavours were starting to come out of it. I think from my personal experience, about the only regional edition that was fantastic, wondrous, straight off the bats, immediately was the Diplomaticos Bachitos in 2014. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this in my opinion, and see what I think in 5 or 10 years' time when this video is still on YouTube. And I'm going to say that this cigar certainly has plenty of legs in it, even though it's approaching 9 years old. I wouldn't have a problem seeing this at the 15-year mark or the 20-year mark, because it still has a bit of kick in it, even at this stage, approaching the final third. But then again, I've mentioned in previous reviews that Hoya de Monterrey, El Rey de Mundo, and the Rafael Gonzalez are more on the light side for strength. When we think on the fuller side, the markers that are on the fuller side, Bolivar, Ramon Allones, and Partagas are more on the fuller side. And you got to say this about this Ramon Allones smoke. Certainly, that's been true for quite some time, and it's still got plenty of time to settle in terms of its strength. There you go, I've ashed again. But each time I've ashed, here you go. The ash has been about an inch and a half long. It's been great. So, in conclusion, really, if you're fortunate enough to have a Ramon Allones Silesios Finos box still, and you've got a box or half a box or a quarter of a box left, I've only got about a quarter box left. Look, save them if you can. See how they can still turn out. I think they're still going to develop flavours. I did note a little bit of cream at the beginning. It wasn't so much there as I smoked through it, but I wonder if that cream will come up later. Certainly the fruit flavours, the leather was there all throughout, the chocolate, cocoa. So I guess what I'm looking for in this cigar as it ages is just curious to see if that spice sort of diminishes a little bit as it gets a little bit older. Still fairly pungent through the nose. So for me, I guess, from my personal point of view, I'd be interested to see maybe another 2 or 3 years how this smokes, especially through the retrohale. See if it goes a little bit milder. Look, I hope you've enjoyed this review. I look forward to the next review we do in the mid-2018 series. Until then, happy smoking.